during the first Trump administration, the Federal Trade Commission sued Meta, alleging that its acquisitions of Instagram and WhatsApp had given it monopoly power in the personal social networking market. Just the other day, a federal judge dismissed the case, ruling that the FTC did not show that Meta currently holds monopoly power in that market. So, Luigi, what did you think when you saw the decision?
So, first of all, the issue was whether Facebook has market power in the sector that regards your interaction with family and friends. And so the issue was whether TikTok was a real substitute for Facebook or not. And by and large, the case was won by a testimony of one of my colleagues at the economic department, John List, who had an experiment showing that if you pay people to stay away from Facebook, several of them go to YouTube, several of them go to TikTok. And so in the view of the defense and eventually in the view of the judge, this proved that the market for Facebook products was actually much larger. And there were effective substitutes, and there were also easy entry because TikTok had entered in the meantime and was very successful in gaining market share.
So what do you think of that line of thinking?
This is one of the weaknesses of all antitrust cases is how you define the market. And actually reminds me of my Italian background because when Berlusconi controlled half of the Italian TVs, basically all the private Italian TVs, he said, oh, but I have no monopoly because there are a lot of newspapers out there and people can read a newspaper. And it's true, if you define the market large enough, nobody's a monopolist, okay?
Yep.
So what I find it interesting is that in the very experiment by John List, more than 50% of the people who are paid to stay away from Facebook actually did not go to any other social media, which to me is the ultimate example of lack of substitutability and market power. It's like saying, yes, of course, if I prevent you to go to watch TV in the old days, imagine pre-internet, I prevent you to watch TV. Yes, some people will read the newspaper because they have nothing other source of news. But a lot of people will go out with their friends. A lot of people will actually read a book. And he's not saying that going out with a friend in the same market as the TV. It's simply that you have no close substitute and you change completely the market. And so I'm actually shocked that the FTC did not push this point stronger because it seems to me a very clear indication that Facebook or Meta now has market power. Not to mention, the other thing is that the FTC try a different line of defense, or in fact, attack, because they are the plaintiff. And the line of attack was that Meta made so much money consistently that it is difficult to justify in a world in which you don't have market power. And I think that somehow that line of attack did not resonate with the judge, who was quite dismissive, even if it's honestly, from an economic point of view, it's hard to explain how you can make this amount of money if there are not important barriers to entry. And I think that the existence of the network externalities is a gigantic barrier to entry because if I have all my friends, for example, I have all my high school friends on WhatsApp. And it's not that Signal is not competing with WhatsApp, but if I cannot go to WhatsApp, I don't go to Signal because there's none of my friends on Signal. So what do I do on Signal? I probably read a book.
Do you think then that the FTC should have defined the market more tightly or more broadly? Could they have won this case if they had simply defined the market differently, or was the case unwinnable?
I'm not so sure. I think that the judge really gives away his views in the opening line because
Yep.
If you think that the market changes very fast, basically you don't have any monopoly. And it says this is a line that goes back to Milton Friedman and say there is no monopoly except with the support of the government and the sanction of the government, because everything else can be quickly bypassed with technology. Now, the secret is quickly, because if you think about the AT&T monopoly, that took 90 years to undo. So is quickly might be in the eye of the beholder. But I think that once you buy into that line, it's very difficult to convince you that anything is a monopoly, because technology will always go around you.
So, do you make anything of the fact that this case was brought during the first Trump administration and came to an end during the second Trump administration, and that Meta has been courting Trump? Or is that far too much conspiracy theory and has nothing to do with the merits of this decision?
Actually, I really want to take a completely different lesson from the length that it took this case to be adjudicated, which is not unusual, unfortunately, in these important cases, which is much, much more important to block mergers when they take place rather than later on. Because for our listeners who might be too young or might have forgotten, I think the FTC authorized back in the days the acquisition of Instagram first and WhatsApp second. And they could have stopped it, or they could have challenged that and potentially stop it back then. And it looks almost like the judge is saying at the time would have made a lot of sense to block it, but now so much water under the bridge,
Yeah.
you cannot really rewrite history. By now, it's too late. But what is interesting is that in the economic literature, there is a big emphasis on the errors of type 1 or errors type 2 in adjudicating. And error type 1 is when you're too strict, error type 2, you're too loose. And the view of economists, which is a little bit self-serving, is to say, the biggest mistake is a mistake in which you block a merger because you cannot see the counterfactual. If you allow a merger, you can always later on catch up to it. And the reality is you can't. At least you can't in a reasonable time.
Yep. Yeah, I thought that to me is the most interesting part of this, is that it does argue for a preemptive antitrust policy, because if you have what is the right word? If you have an ex ante policy or an ex post policy where you're looking back and trying to decide whether something was right or wrong, whether the judge's argument is correct now, it is true that things move too quickly and the damage has been done, and we don't know the competitors that could have come along and how the market would look different. And anyway, I think that is the key takeaway from this, is that if the world moves really quickly, then maybe we should err on the side of being preemptive rather than trying to look back at things and say after it's too late, oh well, it's too late.
The other remarkable thing is that this case had phenomenal juicy quotes. It looks like Google has learned from the Microsoft case not to put anything on an email, but Mark Zuckerberg did not get the memo. And so there are sort of phenomenal smoking guns, like it's better to buy than to compete, which on the face of it, if you want a smoking gun that you're trying to squash competition, and this is, what do you want more from life? So the fact that you could lose a case like this is pretty depressing in my view.
So do you think then that it does, that's the question I wanted to get to, do you think it does have larger consequences then for the landscape of antitrust? Does it make the FTC less willing to bring cases, and does it change anything else that's underway?
Oh, absolutely. I think that there is only so many cases you can bring and lose, because then you lose the momentum, the conviction. And I think that to its credit, the FTC has won a significant number of cases. But this is, in my view, a major setback with important repercussions. So I will expect the FTC to be much more cautious in bringing new cases.